So many things happened in the year 1971. One of those things was Bobby Fischer sent Mark Taimanov, a Soviet Grandmaster, to the hospital from losing a chess game. Taimanov played a novelty in this game. He had 3 brilliancies. He could have beaten Fischer, tied the match 1.5, 1.5, but he ended up losing. We're going to see how that went down. He quite literally sent this man to the... I mean, that is fantastic news for the unemployed. That is what we're doing today. We're going to look at this game. So, the year is 1971. It's a candidates tournament, match play, right? Because Fischer argued that the Soviets kind of colluded, and that they did, right? They were commies after all. That's what commies do. They collude, affirmative action. Like a fat person. They just eat too much. They got to lose weight. Or like a person who dyes their hair a ton of different colors, probably mentally unstable. All fair assumptions, all general facts, general knowledge. But we get a King's Indian defense, right? This was Fischer's favorite defense as black. White gets the super center. We get castles, bishop e2, common stuff, e5. We're not going to be going into the theory. All right, everybody put on their unemployed hats, right? Let's all gather around, put on our unemployed hats while we look at this game. It's a beautiful game. So we get castles, knight c6, right? What's the point of knight c6? Well, essentially, if white doesn't castle and they go d5, they let go of this hole on c5, and then you play the move pawn to a5, and you play around the hole that was created on c5. The other thing white could do is castle, and after knight c6, gain a tempo on the knight. Now, this knight cannot gain control of c5, but you did gain a tempo and you're routing over to the king side. Which side of the board are you attacking on as black? You're attacking on the king side, right? Your pawn chain is facing the king side. Now, the most common move for white here is b4. What is that called? It's called the bayonet attack. Basically, black tries to win on the king side, vice versa, white tries to win on the queen side. But we get bishop to d2, okay, very common in knight e8. Now, some of you might be saying, all I've seen is knight d7. What's the difference? Well, knight d7 tries to clamp down on c5, which is where white is trying to expand on. But the problem with it is that you try to play f5 and e6 becomes a very good square for white's knight. However, this knight provides defense to c7, which becomes a critical square when the c-pawn is gone. Also, it allows the bishop to remain open on e6, preventing from any forks in the nearby future. We got rook c1, pawn to f5, okay. Looks like a King's Indian to me. Looks like a King's Indian to you. And if it doesn't, you should study more chess. We get queen to b3. This was the novelty created at the time. And Fischer spent a lot of time figuring out how to dismantle this move. So it looks like a sensible move, right? Queen to b3, what's the point? Well, it ties down the light squared bishop to b7, but that's not all it does. That's surface level. Let's delve deeper. The point is that it's on the same diagonal as black's king. So in a perfect world, white is going to collapse black's d-pawn, and then he's going to push d6 himself, give a check, and win a knight. In a perfect world, that's what's going to happen. Is it a perfect world? Far from it. Pawn to b6. So Fischer finds the best move. What fascinates me about a move like pawn to b6 is either someone under 1500 would play this move, or the best player in the world would play this move. Right? Because you study positional chess, you're like, don't make light squared weaknesses. It looks like Swiss cheese, yada, yada, yada. But then a person who's under 1500 is like, ooh, b6, stop c5, open up bishop, unpin bishop. But then you become so good and you're like, no, this is my best move. I'm going to stop c5 on its face. They're never going to collapse d6. And I'm just going to deal with the light squared weaknesses because I'm Bobby Fischer and I'm the best. That's essentially what he was saying. We get take on f5, take on f5. You're always very happy to take on f5 as black, right? Because now you have king h8, rook g8, and you could attack on the g file. So it's very good stuff. Okay, we got knight to g5. What would you play here? What would you play here? Fischer plays knight f6 in inaccuracy. You could play f4, and you could play h6. So let's look at h6, because it looks like a very good move, a sensible move, attack the knight that comes in. So it jumps to e6. This is a very common sacrifice in King's Indian defenses, except here it works even better for white because of this queen. So for example, we would get knight to d5. No way can you take this as black, right? Then you have absolute clamps, like no way could you do this. So you take on e6. That is not a fork, because remember this, knight on e8 is guarding c7. So you get knight takes e7 check. Queen takes e7, pawn c5 check. And now you really see the idea behind this motif. White has the bishop pair, black does not. White is ahead in development, black is not. That's where the counterplay for the pawn comes from. But a feasible continuation that could have been. Instead, we get knight f6, f4, stopping f4. Best move from Taimanov. I mean, this is a beautiful, this is as good a position you're going to get against Fischer, playing into his King's Indian defense. Okay, now we get h6. Is he going to play knight e6? No, he's going to muddy the waters. He's going to go pawn takes e5. A switch. A switch. So if takes, takes. So we get takes instead. Pawn c5. Brilliancy number 1. Look at how many. This game is amazing. I hope you guys made it past my intro comments. Actually, the cool ones did. Right? The cool ones, the unemployed. The unemployed ones did. Pawn c5 is a brilliant move. Right? It opens up this diagonal. How stupid do? Oh my goodness, I look stupid. All right, hat's coming off for a little bit. We'll get the hair back for a little bit. But yeah, the unemployed hat. It'll make appearances sometimes. We get knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and knight takes d5. You might be like, you should have taken with the queen. As always, stay in school. Stay in school. So, knight takes, and pawn takes. Brilliancy number 2. Why? Because he's just ignoring this. Why is he ignoring this? Why is he ignoring this? He's ignoring this for reasons that we will see. But the reason is rook c6. And there's going to be no way to stop this. It's really quite fascinating. And it's kind of what's going to happen, right? He takes back. We still get rook c6. This is a beautiful... Taimanov is playing excellent chess here. So the fact that he would have tied the match 1.5, 1.5, instead was down 3-0. I mean, the hospital's a little aggressive, but I mean, high blood pressure, it happens. Honestly, it happens for the best of us. To the best of us, rather. Rook c6, brilliancy number 3, I believe in. Yes, brilliancy number 3 in 3 moves. Crazy. The point is if takes, bishop c4, and you're just paralyzed. Black is quite literally just paralyzed. So instead we get king h8 getting out of the pin. Now what do you play here? I saw what white should have played in like 2 seconds. But the thing is, he wrote a book. So Taimanov wrote a book and he was like, I was going to play queen h3. Queen h3 is a move. He's like, I was going to play queen h3. But then he went into like 4 pages of notes about how he saw ghosts and he couldn't find the win. And then ultimately he didn't play queen h3. But queen h3 is a move you play in a heartbeat. You don't need to see it the whole way through. Right? It just goes along with the plan of the whole. You can't play like c5, cb6, rook c6, and then not go queen h3. The point is simple. It's rook takes h6, bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, king g8, queen h7, mate. Now, of course, it's equal. Of course, right? Chess is always equal. But no, this is very hard. I mean, rook f6, bishop c4. This is, I would say this is almost unholdable. By the way, this would be brilliancy number 4, with many more to come in the near future. Right? Black can't do anything. His only move is f4, which, okay, it's findable. Fischer would find it, but the game would be hanging on a razor's edge. Right? You might say that's a rook. No, it's not. That's a fork. So this would have been disgusting. 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 But it didn't happen, which is so tragic. Which is so tragic because this could have been one of Taimanov's best games in history. Completely changed the match, everything that was to come. One little thing changes everything in history. I mean, it's actually crazy. Unemployed. Knight f3. So he goes back to knight f3. We get bishop to b7, gaining a tempo on the rook. And look how Fischer gains momentum. One slip up against a guy named Bobby Fischer. No more. That was his last chance. He had to go rook takes h6. But he just wasn't having it. Right? He didn't want to go for this attack. He kind of played perfectly and then just retreated. That's not going to cut it. Not against Fischer. And look at this. This is disgusting. Because Fischer wins the game in disgusting I mean, this is 2,700 chess. 2,800 chess. Stockfish chess, right? Double isolated pawns. This guy is winning with double isolated pawn. Bobby Fischer teaches pawn structure. I have so many titles in my head, but Bobby Fischer teaches pawn structure, right? They say, don't do this. Nah. Today we're doing it. Look at this bishop. Look at this bishop. Look at these. Look at the vertical, diagonal, sideways, horizontal. I mean, up and down, side to. This is disgusting. Rook d1. Where do you put the queen? Queen's under attack. Where do you put it? Some people might say queen e8. You don't want to be on the light squares, right? You don't want to be on the light squares. You want to be on the dark squares so that when they go rook e6, you have a check. Gains a tempo. It's good stuff. The king has to move. He goes for a rook trade. He gets a rook trade. That he does. And queen a4. What's the move? Check. King f2. But what's the follow-up? What's the follow-up? Good positional puzzle here. Bishop f8. A backwards bishop move, understanding that the king is in a mating box. Also, just appreciate these pawns. You know how bad that rook was on the g file? And that rook really wanted to be on. I mean, that's unreal. That's honestly unreal. But yes, a mating threat in the midst. So we get b4 stopping the mating threat. Bishop to e4, called an inaccuracy. I don't care. Prepares queen e6, defends everything. It's a great move. Fantastic move. Then we get rook e8. Fumble. How does black win here? Don't get married to an idea. Do get married to a person. Right? In today's day and age. Good people everywhere. On both genders. There's bad people everywhere too. But do get married. Also, do retreat your bishop sometimes. Bishop to c6. Bishop to c6 is a fork, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. And he has to give up the queen. So this is also instructive because this is hard to win sometimes. You should play Stockfish. Anytime you get a position like this and someone resigns, you should play it out against Stockfish just to convert. But okay, he attacks the rook moves. He moves the queen, maybe e3, defending bishop, defending pawn, attacking pawn. We get king to f1 getting on the light squares, getting out of the way of the pin with king h7, that is. Also not going king g7 so that this won't come with check any time of the day. Right, imagine that being a fork. But okay, he goes knight b5. You might be like, why didn't he take a free pawn? I'd be like, well, it's not a free pawn. It's not a free pawn. It's not what it is. So we get knight b5, bishop to e5. Look at this. Disgusting. Absolute clamp on this knight. Bada bing, bada boomski. Queen to d7, a forkski, but that's defended by the bishop. We get rook a8, pawn f3. I mean, this is just good chess now. Right? This is just how you put games away. If take, if pawn take, you get the gist. We get pawn takes, bishop takes, king g2, and after the move, queen g2, he played on a little bit, got forked, got mega forked, and this is just all over. He was probably just processing. Yeah, queen e5, he resigned. Because after king g1, queen takes. White's pieces are too uncoordinated. So even though you have the rook and the knight, you're going to get forked. Your opponent is Fischer. You will lose the game. So this is one of the, I don't know, most slept on games from history. Maybe it's well known. Have you guys seen it before? Thank you for watching. We're back. We're back in the US of A. I think I got the setup down. Comment down below if there's any better way to make this setup. But I think this is pretty good. Big book reading guy. But yeah, thank you as always for watching. Until next time, which should be tomorrow. Peace.